Someone played Every Breath You Take at their wedding last year. Sting heard about it and said publicly that he finds this deeply unsettling because that song is not about love. It never was. But the melody is warm enough, and the chorus familiar enough, that millions of people have filled in a meaning the lyrics explicitly refuse to provide. This happens more than you'd think. These are the 10 darkest secret meanings behind the most iconic anthems of the 1980s. Number 10. Tainted Love by Soft Cell.
Run away, I've got to get...
Gloria Jones recorded the original in 1964. It was a northern soul track, fast, raw, barely charted. Nobody was thinking about hidden meanings. It was just a song about difficult love.
Into the heart of me, the love.
When Mark Almond covered it in 1981, he stripped everything down. One synthesizer, a cold drum beat, a voice that sounded exhausted before the first verse ended. The arrangement changed the emotional register completely. What had been frantic became clinical, distant. And in that distance, a different meaning moved in.
Once I ran to you. Now...
Soft Cell were openly gay at the moment when gay men in Britain were beginning to be told, quietly at first, then in tabloid headlines, that their love was inherently contaminated. Tainted Love carried weight the original never intended. They never explained it. The music said enough. By 1982, the song had sold over 1 million copies in the UK. The word did all the work.
Take my tears and that's not nearly... Oh.
Number 9. Total Eclipse of the Heart by Bonnie Tyler.
And I need you now tonight.
Jim Steinman wrote this song for a vampire. Not metaphorically. He had been developing a stage musical about Nosferatu, the German silent film creature, and wrote this as the emotional centerpiece. The song was meant to be his declaration, immortality framed not as power, but as an unbearable, unending loneliness. Turn around bright eyes was a call to pray. I really need you tonight was not romantic desperation. It was hunger, the specific hunger of something that can never be satisfied.
And we'll only be making it right.
The gothic scale of the whole production, the orchestral swells, the operatic key changes, none of it was stylistic excess. Steinman was writing a monster, and he wanted the music to feel like being consumed by one. The musical stalled and never got made. Steinman gave the song to Bonnie Tyler instead. Changed nothing, because he saw no reason to. Tyler sang it as a power ballad. The world received it as one, and for 40 years, couples have slow danced to a vampire's hunger without knowing it.
Every now and then I fall apart.
The original music video is the clearest evidence of what Steinman intended. Schoolboys with glowing eyes in darkened corridors, a hooded figure, doves released into blackness, wind machines pushing through every frame. It made no sense as a love story. It made complete sense as a scene from a gothic horror musical. Nobody asked him to clean it up, because the melody was doing enough work on its own that the images didn't need to be understood. They just needed to feel large.
Every now and then I get a little bit angry.
Number 8. 99 Luftballons by Nena.
90 Luftballons, ihren Weg zum Horizont.
The song started at a Rolling Stones concert in West Berlin. Guitarist Carlo Carges was watching the crowd release balloons into the sky and found himself thinking about where those balloons would drift. East, past the wall, across the border, into Soviet airspace. Unidentified objects. A radar operator who has to decide, in seconds, whether this is an attack. Carges brought that image to Nena, and what they wrote together was a complete story with a beginning and an ending. 99 balloons rise, pilots scramble, politicians panic, and the chain of decisions plays out to its logical conclusion. No intervention, No last-minute reversal, just silence. The German lyrics are specific in a way the English translation chose not to be. The German version names the generals, mocks the war games, describes the fighter pilots acting like action heroes flying into battle. It is angrier and more direct than most people realize, because most people heard the English version, which softened the accusation into something that could pass as commentary. Both versions end identically. One survivor, standing in the ruins of a city, finding a balloon, releasing it into an empty sky. It is the most defeatist ending in the history of pop music. Radio programmers played it because it was catchy and foreign, and the title sounded cheerful. The people dancing to it in 1983 had no idea they were dancing to an extinction event. Nena knew. She wrote it because she was watching the news, and nobody around her seemed particularly concerned. Before we get to the top, if you've made it this far, you already know this isn't a list you'd find anywhere else. Hit the like button if any of these songs will never sound the same to you again. Subscribe if you want more of this. Real stories behind the music, not just the version the radio told you. And drop a 3 in the comments if you're still watching. It takes 2 seconds, and it tells us you want more of exactly this. Number 7, In the Air Tonight by Phil Collins.
I've been waiting for this moment.
Collins did not watch a man drown while another man stood by and refused to help. He did not track that man down through the music industry and expose him at a concert. He has denied this in interviews for over 40 years. The story is fiction, compelling enough that it keeps regenerating, a legend more satisfying than the reality. The reality is that Collins wrote this song alone in a house in 1981, during the collapse of his first marriage. He recorded onto a tape machine without planning. What came out was controlled rage, a specific kind of anger that knows exactly where it lives but isn't ready to move yet. The famous drum fill that arrives 8 minutes in isn't theatrical tension. It's suppressed grief finally breaking the surface. The legend replaced the real story because people needed a villain and a confrontation. What Collins actually wrote was harder than that. The experience of sitting with betrayal quietly until it becomes something you can almost hold in your hands. Number 6, Sweet Dreams by Eurythmics.
Everybody's looking for something.
Annie Lennox said it plainly. The song is about power, not love disguised as power, not power emerging from love, just the structure of desire itself, examined without sentiment.
Some of them want to abuse you.
Some of them want to use you. Some of them want to be used by you. She was describing every transaction that gets called a relationship, the need, the leverage, the consent and absence of it. The chorus doesn't resolve into anything warmer. It just keeps turning the same observation over, looking at it from different angles. The music video put Lennox in a boardroom, in a suit, at a table with executives. A cow walked through the frame. She offered no explanation for the cow. That image, absurdity dropped into the middle of a power structure, was the most honest moment in the production. Sweet Dreams reached number 1 in 15 countries. Nobody seemed particularly unsettled by what it was saying, which was, in a way, exactly her point.
Some of them want to get used by you.
Number 5, Billie Jean by Michael Jackson. Jackson wrote this about a real woman, not a character, an actual fan who had been sending letters to his home, who had convinced herself, and then tried to convince others, that Jackson had fathered her child.
People always told me, be careful what you do.
He had been receiving correspondence like this for years. The paranoia in the song, the sense of reality being reconstructed around you without your consent, the insistence that the kid is not my son, all of it came from lived experience. Quincy Jones wanted to cut the bass line. He thought it was too dominant, too far in front of the mix. Jackson refused. And that bass line, the one that registers in your body before your brain identifies the song, is the argument the lyrics are making. The threat doesn't announce itself. It arrives quietly, already underneath everything, patient. The song works because Jackson understood that paranoia doesn't feel dramatic. It feels like something you almost can't name. Number 4, Relax, by Frankie Goes to Hollywood.
Relax, don't do it when you wanna go to it.
BBC Radio 1 DJ Mike Reed refused to play it on air in January 1984. He called it obscene. The BBC issued a formal ban. The ban sent it to number 1 for 5 weeks.
Relax, don't do it.
What the BBC was responding to was explicit. The song is an instruction, and nobody was pretending otherwise. But context matters. This was 1984. Gay men were being publicly blamed for AIDS across the British press. The tabloids had found their narrative. And here was a band, openly, unapologetically gay, releasing a song about gay desire at the precise moment that desire was being redefined in headlines as a public health threat.
But shoot in the right direction.
The BBC didn't frame its ban in those terms. It cited decency standards. But the song Frankie Goes to Hollywood was making, and the moment they were making it in, were the same thing. The record kept selling because some people understood that, and others simply found it catchy. Both groups drove it to number 1. Number 3, Papa Don't Preach by Madonna. Both sides hated it simultaneously, for opposite reasons, and neither side was wrong about what they were hearing. Planned Parenthood called it irresponsible. The Catholic Church called it immoral. Pro-choice groups said it glorified teenage pregnancy. Pro-life groups said that by showing the girl keeping the baby, it made the alternative visible, and that visibility was the problem. Each organization read a different song, because the song was genuinely addressing both of them at once. Madonna said the title was the real argument, Papa Don't Preach. Directed at the church directly, not only at a fictional father. The girl in the song isn't naive. She has made a decision under conditions she didn't choose, and she is asking, not for permission, not for approval, for support. That distinction made everyone more uncomfortable than a simpler message would have. It is much easier to argue against someone who is asking for your opinion. This girl was not. Number 2, Born in the U.S.A. by Bruce Springsteen. In August 1984, Ronald Reagan's campaign asked for permission to use this song. Springsteen said no. The campaign cited it anyway at a rally in New Jersey, invoking the title as proof of a certain kind of American pride. The pushback came quickly. The song was dropped. The people who made that request had listened to the drum intro and the fist in the air energy and stopped there. They didn't get to the first verse. A man from a dead-end town, sent to Vietnam, coming home to nothing. His brother is dead in Saigon. He goes to the VA hospital and gets turned away. He goes to the refinery hiring office, and the man there says, "Son, if it was up to me." He is back in the USA, and the USA has no use for him. That's the entire story. It fits in 3 minutes. The chorus lands on top of that story, with a sound that is easy to mistake for triumph. But born in the U.S.A. isn't pride. It's the last claim the character can make. When everything else has been taken, citizenship is what remains. You can't be stripped of where you were born. Springsteen built the production to mirror that gap. Max Weinberg's snare hitting like a door being slammed shut. The E Street Band driving behind it with a force that sounds like victory, but isn't. The music performs confidence. The lyrics describe collapse. Most people heard the performance. Springsteen has played this at every tour since 1984. He eventually tried performing it on acoustic guitar alone to see whether stripping the production would change what audiences took from it. It helped, but only a little. The misreading is 40 years old now. It has its own momentum. Number 1, Every Breath You Take by The Police.
Every step you take, I'll be watching.
Sting called it, in his own words, a really nasty little song. He wrote it in 1983 during the dissolution of his first marriage. The surveillance, the counting, the watching, the quiet insistence on presence was not metaphor. He was examining how obsession presents itself as devotion. Every breath you take, every move you make, I'll be watching you, is a threat in the syntax of a promise. He has said this repeatedly, in dozens of interviews over 4 decades.
Oh, can't you see?
People play it at weddings anyway. It is the most performed, misunderstood song in popular music. Not because the meaning is buried, but because the production is warm enough and the melody familiar enough that listeners absorb the emotion and skip the content. The instrumentation says devotion. The lyrics say control. Most people choose what the instruments are telling them.
I'm a poor heartaches.
This is what Sting was writing about. Obsession doesn't look like obsession from the inside. It looks like attention. It feels like love. He put that dynamic into 3.5 minutes, labeled it clearly, and the world decided it was a love song. He has been correcting the record ever since. The record keeps outselling the correction.
Every move you make.
None of these artists buried their meaning. The lyrics are there. The interviews exist. In most cases, the artists themselves have explained exactly what they were doing. What happened instead is that the music created a feeling, and the feeling was more comfortable than the content. That's what pop music does at its most effective. It makes you feel something before you understand what you're feeling. These songs just happen to be doing that with something darker than the feeling suggested. The melody got there first. It always does. And by the time the words arrived, people had already decided what the song was about, and they were not going to be talked out of it.